Hello everyone, can you feel it? The excitement in the air, the promise of change, the thrill of infinite potential as Blizzcon is around the corner waiting to embrace you in its hype-filled arms that just make you feel so safe. But before we talk about that, and what I would love to see, one very interesting thing of late is that Hanzo seems to be in prime position for the next rework. And we'll talk about Mercy's corpse and some of the other changes a little bit later. Blizzard have been heavily thinking about him, which is weird because I think we're all, aware nobody gives a shit about Hanzo. So this is quite interesting, and ultimately it does make sense because I mean, look at him. But also, in-game, he is just really anticlimactically weak, and he kind of suffers from the Roadhog problem, or at least what used to be the Roadhog problem. And that is to say, in terms of general strength of his kit, he's not actually that good, but he does have one move that is very effective when used correctly that makes people on the other end of it end up in a kind of "Die, piece of no-skill fucking simple geometry! I will take your geometry and shove it up your tangent!" And look, admittedly, having a character with such a general rage-inducing to the average player move isn't inherently good, and as much as I do miss my prime cuddle piggy, I can at least accept the logic behind it being a technical overall improvement to the game if no one is toting something that makes it less fun for others. It's only not a huge issue with Hanzo because he is just so, even with that, kind of weak and underplayed, so it's really exciting to see that Blizzard have been giving him a lot of thought, some tinkering, and we might see a Hanzo reborn. I mean, admittedly, let's just go ahead and fuse him with Genji, and then they can just become the one character they were originally going to be. So the question is, how do you tinker with Scatter Arrow without making Hanzo hilariously underpowered, because that's his one ridiculous move, and still make it good for the player of Hanzo and for the enemies? Well, I think the solution is actually quite elegant, because there's no way Hanzo's going to get a total rework. On paper, his moves are really solid. His ult is obviously one of the most iconic and impressive looking in the game. In fact, it is arguably the most impressive looking ult in the game, but I don't want to drag on about that. His moves on paper are all really quite good. A localized see-through walls delivered via arrow, creating this sort of massive bouncing death in arrow form is really cool. It looked awesome in the cinematic when Genji was weaving through the scatter, and creating that feeling in-game is definitely a positive if it can be done right. So I don't think take a move away and give him an entirely new one is what is the correct solution for Hanzo. I think what you should do is make it so that Scatter Arrow actually, when it arrives at the other end, stays dormant, like a trap, like a conch mine on a wall, but delivered from distance via the arrow, and then you press a button again to actually explode the scatter. And there's, let's say, a half-second delay between it landing and your ability to explode it. Now, think about this. It might initially be like, what? That seems so random. But it actually solves the one issue people have with Scatter while still maintaining its intended usefulness. And that main issue is you're fighting Hanzo in close range, where you should be having the advantage because of the nature of his character and role, yet he just scatters at the floor near your feet and you get instantly one shot, and it just sucks, right? It feels cheap, like he didn't have to work for that or anything. There's a huge element of, great, that's wow, alright, well, yeah, you don't feel like you had a fight, right? But if he fired it at your feet, had to wait half a second and then detonate it, well then at that point, it's your own bloody fault that you got caught by it. And this way, he can still use it extensively at range, he can still land it near a team and then detonate it for some serious effectiveness, but it also lets him preemptively set up a literal web of arrows waiting to happen to properly defend an area as a defender. defense hero. Hell, you could even do this and then actually turn up the effectiveness of Scatter. I know, that sounds crazy. Maybe add a couple extra scatters in and let him have a cooldown on it, maybe a cap of charges, however you want to do it. But if he has a few little scatter canisters that he's embedded in some cool locations at range with his arrows, and the enemy team pushes in and he triggers them and then poof, scatter arrows everywhere, that's much more compelling for everyone, because then you've got to be on the lookout for where they are. You as the Hanzo need to be aware to actually trigger them so they don't just get walked past. You have to think about them. It's not just fire a scatter near where the enemies are and hope that you get a kill. It's a little bit more thought and planning for both parties, and that's really awesome. This lets the move be incredibly effective when used well, while taking away the cheap aspect of it that makes a lot of people feel real resentment towards Hanzo and the geometry. You could even do the same with his sensor arrow, give it a trap setting, but that's not really the point here. Honestly, all his other moves are fine, and in terms of bringing him up to a little bit more playability, I mean, taking inspiration from the defense hero I designed the other day, I wouldn't totally be against with his normal arrow that he fires being scattery and having it bounce once. I think that could be a lot of fun, but, you know, if we're not going to go that route, which I don't inherently think we should, but I don't think it would be that bad, I think giving him the ability for his arrow to pierce through one target, so it fully goes through them and into someone else for half damage, but only at full draw, then you can actually get a little bit creative with what you're doing, and the imagery of you are fully piercing through the enemy and then hitting their friend behind them, that's kinda awesome as well, at least to me, it really is. You could definitely give him moves like a pin arrow or a net arrow for some CC if you wanted to shuffle his kit around a little bit, let him get a little bit more damage out by being able to shoot at someone he's rendered immobile, but there's so many moves like that in the game that I don't think Hanzo really needs one that much. Hell, I do like the idea of giving one of his moves as a homing arrow. That would be really awesome. Like, whoever you're pointing your aimer at when it releases, it will try and get to them unless it hits a wall or someone else first if they get in the way. That could be a lot of fun. See, the thing is, Hanzo is a dude who uses highly advanced tech arrows, which means you can take a lot of creative license and just go, oh, he's got an arrow that does this, now he's got an arrow that does that, and Hanzo is definitely someone, as I said in the Torbjorn turret change video, that you can balance and change and bring into effectiveness by changing him on a mechanical level. You say that lore-wise he's developed this new arrow or been given it whatever that now lets him do this. It makes complete sense, shuffles things around and brings him into relevance if it solves a real problem in the meta, or even just make him a little bit stronger, and I think there's a lot of potential there. I'd love to know what you guys think in terms of giving Hanzo that little bit of edge while taking away what many people consider bullshit about him, because even at range when you get suddenly scattered, you're with two allies and Hanzo's 100 feet away and he fires a scatter near you and it just immediately kills you, it still kinda sucks, right? One-shots always do suck, and arrows and snipers don't feel as bad because you know the person had to aim, and people don't get that from scatter. I will say right now, scatter isn't mindless to use. It does have a system of how it works. It is plannable, it is predictable, but that doesn't change the fact that on the surface level it does look just fucking bullshit lucky, and there's not really much you can do about that if you leave it in entirely its current state and just, you know, switch some numbers around. That doesn't help anyone. It really doesn't. So I hope that kind of thing is on the table for Blizzard. And it got a little bit more damage. This is good. Something I actually suggested as well. Gives her a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more bite, lets her defend herself. It's just an all-round fantastic change. 60 to 70 on the weapon will really help her out. Whether it will bring her above Mercy? Maybe, because coupled with the fact that Mercy got what the, she needs a res now. They've made her have a cast time of 1.75 seconds that also slows her like hell while resing someone. Granted, it's probably more accurate because it reflects a lot more this highlight intro where she reses someone, which has been in the game for ages, so it probably does actually take a bit of time to do, which, to be fair, you are reconstructing someone's body. You know, you probably have to think about that for more than an instant second, but it just feels so cripplingly extremely sluggish now. And the fact that it goes on cooldown, even if it's not successful and you're killed during the near 2 seconds, you've made yourself a hilariously easy target. See, to me, Mercy is struggling right now because the rework was a great idea. It brought her into the spotlight and made her something that's actually awesome. But so many people have such virulent reactions to this, and they've been calling for so many changes, and there's so many vocally angry minority people in the community that just are not liking what new Power Mercy is doing to the game. And while she wasn't necessarily the best influence, I think Blizzard is somewhat almost giving in to the fact that we need to change something, and they've kind of done this a little bit too knee-jerky, and I think they've actually gone too far in the other direction. Honestly, they say that they want her to be about her healing and then mobility second. They don't want it to revolve around her res, and that's fine, I agree, it's a extra little perk, but the thing is, that's her MO, that's her unique ISP. If you take the edge off that, well, why bring her if you can come up with a healer who does healing better, right? You bring Mercy because of those extras. But if she is just the highest output healer, then she still has a place, and right now she kind of is. So it's not the end of the world, but it really marginalizes the res to mean that you can't do really cool mid-combat, mid-fight, put yourself in a dangerous position, get someone up, escape, right? It's definitely been relegated to more everything's relatively calm, someone died, I'll get them up, right? It's a lot harder to achieve those clutch battle reses, which were really what was irritating people, so maybe this will make a lot of people happier, but I think something like a second instead of nearly 2 would have been fair. It just seems, I don't know, it feels like they're testing the water, right? They made her too strong, seeing the reaction, now they're arguably making her too weak, seeing the reaction, and I feel like she's not done yet. They've already had 3 changes. The initial rework, a Nerf reworky to her ult again and how it interacts with res, and now this again. I'd be very surprised if they accept this one, and I'll be very surprised if somehow this doesn't cause yet another bit of outcry with her, and honestly, there isn't really a just perfect way to fix her, you know? It's one of those abilities, honestly similar to Scatter, that is either too good or too weak. There's very little middle ground. There just isn't. It's non-existent almost. You are reviving an ally. You are turning a fight into a 7 versus 6, and in a game like Overwatch, numbers are huge. So if you get that wrong, well then suddenly you've got a broken character. But then on the converse side, if you make it so hilariously weak it's pointless, then Mercy herself is turning it into a 5v6 by not being a worthy slot filler. So you see what I mean, she is a nightmare to balance, and I think people really need to understand that and not being so immediately vocally outcryy about everything and actually see things settle, or at least see things from the perspective of everyone involved. I mean, TLDR, was she too strong? Did she need this? Yes. But the question is it too far? Is it significantly too far? There's definitely a case to be made, yes, but I'm not going to immediately betray my own words and be like, oh, this is too weak, what the hell? Because this might be okay. We need to play with her more, we need to see, but the initial reaction is, oh, really? Because honestly, for me, it just makes her less fun to play, and I hate changes that lower the funability of a character, because I think that should always be kept at its core. A character should be fun, and it feels weirdly clunky to be slowly rezzing someone while you're a sitting duck and then you die, you know? It brings back the supports just die mentality somewhat, and that was not good for the community whatsoever. So, basically, Mercy causing a lot of strife on both sides of things. But hey, on a more positive note, Blizzcon is on its way, and I hope for all our sakes it makes our day with an announcement that makes us go, "Wahey! Tell us that we will slay new foes, all of the..." I'm now having a strong internal debate as to whether I should cut that out and segue into the BlizzCon in a less moronic manner, or if the level of moronicness goes beyond bad and into funnily bad. I'll risk it. I'm gonna risk it. So, Overwatch BlizzCon, apart from I do hope they announce the next WoW expansion, because I also have a problem with that, but that's fine. I'm a little bit mixed feelings when it comes to Overwatch and Blizzcon, because if timeline-wise is true, we are about due for the next hero. It's about 120 days between each release, and it's about 120 days since Doomfist. So a cinematic and a hero reveal, that's sufficiently big news for BlizzCon. Honestly, I think that's the only thing that we have a precedent for that is big enough for BlizzCon. I don't think new modes or a new map or, you know, something just adding to the game of Overwatch, I don't think that's a big enough, like, whoa, for BlizzCon stage. I mean, admittedly, we might end up with nothing. There's been a lot of speculation that we're not getting a new hero, but then again, a lot of people have said, no, we definitely are. I've already made arrangements to stream it and stuff, and there's a lot of back and forth on what's going to happen. I would say it's probably likely, just because that is the best way to generate hype back into the game, and Blizzard obviously want to keep doing that. It's good, it's healthy for the game. But think about it, this new hero, if there is going to be a new hero at BlizzCon, is the most mysteriously new hero ever. With every other hero, we had some kind of inclination. They somewhat were already known to us in a lore capacity. They made sense. They weren't a huge shock out of nowhere, especially Sombra, which was obviously months and months of ridiculousness. But this hero, when that cinematic starts playing, there's no one sat there that's going to go, I knew it! And that, I mean, there's going to be a few people that do that, but, you know, we don't talk to them. And that's a really cool feeling. So that itself might just be enough. But there's a part of me, and I said this in a video a while ago, that thinks Overwatch is definitely due for a kind of major change-up, a real game changer, yeah. And I don't necessarily know how they'd achieve that. I don't know if a final proper campaign mode would be good. And by the way, I had a thought. With campaign mode, you know, like in a fighting game, there's one overarching story, and then you choose a character, and you play that character's path through that story, you meet the people that you meet, and you get to the end, right? Like, you choose them, and you go through their journey and the role that they played. That could be kind of cool, right? You have Talon successfully achieve another Omnic War, and then you choose a character and have a solo difficult PvE challenge through a set of missions that details their story in the second Great Omnic War. I think that would be a really good way to have a campaigny PvE mode while maintaining a sort of competitive PvP, because you can have leaderboards for how well each person individually does each mission, because I think that's something that is sorely missing from Overwatch. With all the difficult legendary modes and a lot of fun we've had in stuff like Junkenstein and the Null Sector, what if you had an incredibly challenging solo experience that you could work on that doubled up as a proper story narrative? I think that would be an excellent way to do the campaign, but I am getting sidetracked. I just think at this point, right, we need something that makes us go, whoa! Something that we would never predict. Hell, something like Overwatch 1 year later, update everyone with a year more worth of lore within the world, update the world of Overwatch and give a reason for the characters to change, to be different, maybe some to go, some to arrive. Obviously, I don't think that will happen, but I don't know, I want something that level of impactfulness, because I think Overwatch is ready for it. I want it to expand beyond the confines of the team shooter that it is. I've talked about this a lot, but it has the capacity and the world and the love to do that. Like, legitimately, they could announce an Overwatch in a random genre and people would love it. And I just want to see something just what come out of BlizzCon in regards to the game that isn't just above the usual coolness of here's a cinematic new hero, surprise, they're already on the PTR, have fun, oh my god, I have so much science to do, and you know, that usual cycle. Either way, let me know what you want to see out of BlizzCon, and yeah, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Rage Gaming with the video flow, shenanigans in Overwatch, and his fans all know that every single thumbnail that this man makes without fail makes you do a double take, catching your attention with every verse. See, say that you need healing but you're at his mercy, get it? Cause it's a pun. On his channel, that's one of the better ones. Widow is venomous, I see no end to this. Cataclysm's imminent when Rage is in his element. Pandemonium is not familiar with irrelevance. Maximum Genji beam, oh so elegant. Jokes so funny, causing you to cry. Editing is quality as the noon is high. Yo, concussion man, shoot to the sky. Cap it all off with a goodbye.